Well, hello everyone. It's nice to be back with another trial recap. And if you are new here, I'm Kimberlea. This is Kimberlea Live, where I live recap current and ongoing trials with all of you, the law baddies. And just so you know, to become a law baddie, all you have to do is be here and be subscribed. It was a name that we coined during the Karen Reed trial, and this community are the law baddies. So I wanted to say hi to everyone first, and also let me know because I'm a little rusty. It's been a little while since I've been here, so let me know if my audio's okay. The whole thing. Everybody knows kind of the routine. Make sure the mods are here. Make sure that you can hear me correctly. But wow, Donna Adelson's trial. First, I want to let you know, John and I did one of the most in-depth, super deep dives on Dan Markel's case. There is a playlist. It is on this channel. It's also on Dark Livity, but you can see what I'm putting on the screen here. This is a 5-part series. It's not just going to go into what happened to Dan. It's not just going to go into the trials that happened already. This is going to go all the way back in time. Before Wendy was even born, before her and Dan met, it's going to go into everything. Things that you're not going to hear in the trial because they're not going to go back that far. But I wanted you to know about all that because we are on day 1 of the trial. They already did opening statements today. We're seeing a lot of the same witnesses. I don't want to spoil anything for people who haven't seen it. But just so you know, they're not going to go in depth the way that we have. I've heard that this is one of the best deep dives. Thank you for that. It's a major compliment. But if you want to know every detail, before we start getting into just Donna, I would highly recommend you binge that. It is on this channel below. So also, I just wanted to let you know, if you want to do anything behind the scenes with us, there are extra perks and you can become a member of this channel. You can look below for that as well, but you don't have to. However, you can put gifted memberships on and you may be gifted one. There are a lot of generous people in this community. So I just wanted you to know that. If you don't know the backstory of this entire trial, I'm going to give you a summary today, but this is not going to be very, very in-depth. It might have a little more than you're going to hear at the trials. That'll be good. But as most of you know, I do another channel called Dark Livity. We broke down this case like I just mentioned. And there's just a lot. There is a lot to this case. You're going to hear about, how Donna and her husband even got together, the entire family backstory, how they resided in South Florida to begin with. And that will kind of explain a little bit of what happened leading up to Dan's murder. I also want to just mention this. I will be referring to Dan Markel as Dan. I think it's very endearing. Don't get me wrong. I just personally don't feel comfortable because I did not know Dan personally. So Dan it is. So don't think I'm trying to be disrespectful at all because I will hear Danny being used over and over again during this trial. But before I jump in today, I do think it's important to do this mini summary. What I meant by that is before I jump into the live recaps I'm going to be doing every day, I want to get caught up because guess what? I was watching today and there were so many questions in the chat. Whether I went to Tallahassee Democrats Live or Court TV or Law and Crime, there were just so many questions. And I do understand Sarah Dugan did a wonderful job. She did opening statements today and the story was weaved about what happened, but still, I really feel like there was a lot to be said. So I want to do this mini summary. I also want you to know what I'm going to be doing on this channel for the Donna Adelson case. It's always good to know, what are you going to get here if you come here every day? I plan on doing recaps the day of. Today, that's not going to happen. Tomorrow is a Saturday. So will we catch up on Monday? I'm going to try to do it before then. I'm going to let you know that. But usually it's going to be the day of. And someone's saying he's always been called Danny. Danny, sure, in his life, not disagreeing with that. I just don't personally feel comfortable with it. And it was being said a lot, especially by the defense attorneys, which I felt made me uncomfortable. So I just felt like that wasn't something that I wanted to do. And I just wanted to mention it forthright, letting you know. But if you want to start out, we can start with Dan Markel and Wendy Adelson, their marriage custody battle. And we're going to start there. Let me minimize myself so that we can see a little bit of the people that we're going to be talking about. This is Donna Adelson. She looks a little bit different now than she did back when she wasn't in jail. I'm also from Florida. That's another reason why I want to do a deep dive into this case to begin with. But I'm going to start the story, I guess we could say, with, let's go to Dan. This is Dan Markel. We're going to be talking about Dan and Wendy. So I'll bring this picture up of when they were in love and everything was good. Now, Dan Markel was a law professor at Florida State University. He married Wendy, also a lawyer, and he was a lawyer too, in 2006. And they had 2 young sons together, and they were very close in age, 4 and 5 when Dan was killed. Now, Wendy filed for divorce in September of 2012, and the divorce was finalized in July of that same year. Now, a major point of contention was Wendy's desire to relocate with her children to South Florida, and that is where her parents lived. This is her father, Harvey. We already showed you Donna. Her parents lived in South Florida. This is where she grew up in Coral Springs, but now they're living in Miami. She had a lot of ties to that community. And there's an entire backstory, which I think is so important for you to know, which is why I want you to know the ins and outs and watch the playlist that I created. Because there are reasons why Wendy and Dan were living in Tallahassee. Wendy and Dan had made a promise in the beginning that they were going to only be there temporarily. So I'm not going to go into too much of this, but it wasn't supposed to be a permanent move to Tallahassee. Tallahassee is way different than South Florida. Tallahassee is a college town. Everything is centered around FSU. Dan had a career that was taking off as a professor, and Wendy, not so much, because she had kind of given her career a backseat. She had been hired at Florida State University as a marital hire. That is when one of the people in the couple get hired, and then the school gives the spouse a position. So they're sort of on that honor system, so to speak, and Wendy was okay with that in the beginning. But after a while, things just were not working out with Wendy. Dan was doing amazing. He was very well known in the community as a professor, and Wendy really, really wanted more, which I think a lot of us can relate to. I'm not trying to be on her side with it, but I'm giving you a little bit of the backstory of what Wendy was feeling. She wanted to branch out more. She wanted to branch out in her own career, and she didn't personally feel like the promises were kept, and there was a lot of issues with Dan and Wendy. I'm going to show another picture of them when they were in love, when things were different. But one of the things that kind of evolved was Dan's religion. Dan had always been Jewish, and actually, that's how Dan and Wendy met. They met on J-Date. There's a backstory to that as well, because Donna was pivotal in how Wendy and Dan got together, because Donna had a lot of control over her daughter. She wanted the best for Wendy, so she even wanted the best man for Wendy. They both grew up in Jewish families. And of course, Dan and Wendy ended up getting married. The problem was that as their relationship progressed, this is Wendy's perspective, Dan became a lot more strict. He was more orthodox, more devout in his religion. And that was something that Wendy got more and more uncomfortable with, according to her, as the relationship progressed, because that's something that they did not agree to, according to Wendy, in the beginning of the relationship. I think that's really important for you to note. Now, this was hard for Wendy for a lot of reasons, but one that I particularly remember was that Wendy felt uncomfortable raising toddlers. If you've raised babies before, you know that they can be very picky. Well, there were rules in Judaism, and especially according to Dan. He did not appreciate, he did not condone, and he did not respect how Wendy was acting when she wouldn't abide by the dietary rules, for one. Dan wanted Wendy to adhere to what he felt was right, and she was starting to feel trapped. Their marriage was falling apart. They once were in love, but now things were getting heated. Now, Dan didn't want a divorce, and that's important to note. He wanted to make things work. It was sad because Dan was on a trip. He was at a convention. He comes home. He rushes home to try to save his marriage because it is falling apart, only to find that there's a note left on the bed. Everything is taken from the house in a pretty petty way, kind of split down the middle. It's not like she was sawing the couch in half, so to speak, but she was taking their belongings and splitting them. She thought that was fair. Remember, you're dealing with two attorneys. Okay, this is not a normal divorce. She was splitting what she thought in half, leaving half of the children's clothing, half of the furniture. But here's the thing. Why I say it was petty, some of it was like she would take half of a set of something. So Dan was heartbroken, as you can imagine, and according to everyone that knew him, he raced home, like I said, from a conference. He didn't want this divorce. He thought things could be mended, but it was too late. Now, after the split, Dan did not want to move, and he did not want his boys moving away from Tallahassee. Remember, he built a career there. He built a life there. Because of their marriage, they were ingrained. This was in their lifestyle. They were ingrained in it, and everything revolved around his career and friends that they made there. He didn't want his boys to be taken away. Would any parent, But Wendy had a lot of ties back home. She wanted to go back to South Florida. And South Florida was never home to Dan to begin with. After they met, they temporarily moved to where Wendy was in South Florida because they were going to wait until Wendy was done working at the law firm that she was at, and they were going to look for Dan to get a job. His dream was to be a professor, and he got that opportunity at Florida State University. So let's go back to June of 2013. A judge denied Wendy's request to relocate back to South Florida and ordered that the children have to remain in Tallahassee. The divorce settlement was now 50-50 custody, child support, all that was being worked out, but the tensions were high. Again, you're dealing with two attorneys, not ordinary. Both of them know the law. They're pretty much using that law against one another. And Dan had a lot of connections in Tallahassee. He knew a lot of lawyers. Remember, he's talking about law. He's going to legal conferences. So he had a lot of those lawyers on his side. So much so, according to Wendy, it was really hard for her to get an attorney because no one wanted to go against Dan and represent her. So over the next year, both of these exes, they had ongoing legal disputes over everything from finances to custody to the way that Dan wanted the kids to be raised. He wanted them to be brought up with Judaism. He wanted it the way that he believed was right. And I think that's hard when one parent doesn't see things the way the other does. That can be really hard for anybody. But in 2014, Dan Markel filed motions and he accused Wendy of hiding assets. Also, he wanted to limit Donna's way that she could be with the boys. He didn't want unsupervised visits anymore because she had made disparaging comments, according to him. He said he heard these comments over their Skype calls that he would have with the boys. And I do also believe that the boys might have mentioned to their dad that their grandma was calling him names like stupid. It's not right. So a court hearing on these issues was pending when tragedy struck. Dan Markel was killed before that hearing. That's not a coincidence. So what about the motive for murder? Well, it came down to Wendy's family. and their desperate desire. This is actually Wendy and her brothers when they were younger, and this is the Adelson family. But their desperate desire for Wendy to relocate, to be reunited. And investigators later determined that the motive for Dan Markel's murder centered around, in particular, Donna, and that's where we are now, but that relocation. Dan wasn't having it. The court sided with him, and Donna didn't want it. Now, with Donna's trial now, you're going to see a lot of emails. Let me see if I can pull one of them up, because that's why I have all my photos that I've saved over the last few years. I think I do have one, but let's go to, trying to show you everything here. This is actually some of the crime scene photos. We're going to get to that. Here are the emails. This is an email. You're going to hear a lot about these emails because you hear about them in the other trials. These were emails, exchanges between Wendy and Donna, that's mom and daughter, between Donna and her son, Charlie. Charlie is one of Wendy's big brothers. And evidence from these emails and interviews showed that Donna was fixated on this relocation issue. She wouldn't let it go. After the court blocked the move, Donna repeatedly pressured Wendy to find ways to change Dan's mind. In these emails, she even proposed bribing Dan with what? All of you are going to remember, $1 million split among the Adelson family members so that he would let the children move. But then there were these really bizarre tactics in these emails, threatening to, she was telling Wendy to do this, to convert the boys to being Catholic, just to torment Dan. So this illustrated to the court, to the investigators, the lengths that Donna was willing to go in order to get her daughter and her grandchildren out of Tallahassee. Wendy's brother, Charlie, let's put him on the screen because I want you to see what everyone looks like, so it'll give you a really good idea. This is Charlie. I'm going to get to some of the comments, I promise. I just want to I'm going to pause about, I would say right after I talk about this part, I'm going to pause and I'm going to get to some of the comments because I do want to hear from all of you. I miss you all. So this is Wendy's older brother, Charlie. Now, he had animosity towards Dan. Why? Well, it goes to the fact, he said, that his mother was under so much stress, and she was, and it seemed to be coming from the fact that Dan wouldn't budge. Charlie was pretty much Donna's go-to. He was the child that seemed to be the closest to her, and she and Charlie, they talked all the time, and something about Charlie, and you're going to hear about this, but in the beginning, you're going to hear that Charlie was a dentist. Now, he wasn't the first dentist in the family. We've got Harvey, his father. He was a dentist first. And then he opened this practice in South Florida. It became very popular. If you watch the playlist, they used very interesting marketing tactics to pretty much blow up their practice and make it really big and profitable and well-known in the area. Charlie was very likable. Everyone wanted to go and have their teeth cleaned, fixed, done by the Adelsons. They were this power family. And all the while, Donna, she had been a teacher, but then she stopped doing that because she wanted to focus on her kids. She had 3 children, Robert, Charlie, and then Wendy. She quit her job. She decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And I have to give her some credit. She was wonderful with the kids. Now, that's, there's some controversy there because she was very controlling. A lot of people thought that she wanted everything her way. We've seen a lot of memes, some of them in our Discord, where, it's not very funny sometimes, but where she's almost threatening her husband, almost like she's running the show. And I've called her the puppet master before. Maybe you'll see it like that. Maybe you won't. But she cared a lot about her family. She cared a lot about appearances. In South Florida, they were very wealthy. running this dental practice. She did all the books. She was basically the coordinator of the practice. And like I said, Charlie following in his father's footsteps, or I should say, Daddy kind of helped him get where he was. Let's just put it that way. Charlie was more of the wild child out of the bunch. Now, you're not going to hear too much about Robert. I believe Robert became a doctor. I could be wrong. Have not revisited the backstory in quite some time. But Robert is kind of estranged from his family. I'm not going to go too much into this, but he married a woman. She was from India, and Donna didn't agree because she wasn't Jewish. So there was a whole falling out between Robert and his family, luckily in some ways, because he didn't have to go through everything that happened. He refused to be involved in anything. So let's jump ahead a little bit. I told you a little bit about the family. We've got Charlie. Charlie wanted to help his mom all the time because, like I said, she was stressed out. A lot of things were going on that he didn't agree with, and he didn't like Dan. He didn't know Dan too well. But according to Wendy, Charlie had joked. He made a little joke in 2013 about hiring a hitman to fix the problem. He said that he looked into it, but it was too expensive. And again, supposedly just joking, he said it was cheaper to buy Wendy a what? A TV as a divorce present, which becomes very interesting later on when Wendy gives her alibi for where she was when Dan was being murdered. She was at home having her TV fixed. Well, you're going to hear more of this. If I'm going too fast, I apologize. I'm going to stop in about 2 minutes, and then we'll get to some of the comments. And if you have any questions up to that, let me answer them for you. Wendy had been dating another professor, Jim Lacasse. At FSU, he worked there, and he recounted he was around when Charlie bragged. What did he brag about? Well, not just money and girls and, I don't know, like salacious things he was doing in the bedroom. So classy. But also the underworld and connections he had to a Cuban criminal element. These are things you're going to hear like verbatim. That's why I'm saying them that way. In South Florida. And these comments, even though they were kind of played off as dark humor, later they take a sinister significance. Because by 2014, the Adelsons' frustration had gotten bigger. There was that important custody battle. Donna wanted her grandbabies. I don't blame her for that part. I don't blame her for wanting to be in their lives. But you don't murder someone. So their frustration was growing. And with this important custody-related hearing looming, one that could have further restrictions on Donna. Remember, Dan was trying to restrict her. He didn't want her to have unsupervised visits with him anymore. So Donna knew this could limit her access. And prosecutors believed that the Adelson family, they had exhausted all their options. Dan said no to the $1 million. He said no to things like flights. And, they tried to say, Dan, you have a flexible career. Why can't you just fly here to see the boys? Or why can't the boys fly there? And they tried to do whatever they could. They exhausted all their options and then, legally, right? And then they turned to an illegal remedy, a murder for hire plot. So let me stop there for a minute because I do want to get to some of your comments. That's what I'm here for. We don't do lives for me just to tell the story. I could do that in a regular video. So if it bugs you that I'm going to answer questions, I'm sorry about that, but we are live. If you're on the replay, you can skip. I'll leave a timestamp for you. Make it really easy. So let me go back and see if you have any really good questions and keep them coming, by the way. And also thank you for being here with me. I know I've been gone for some time. I don't want to get into all of my personal stuff. Maybe I'll do it on a private live later. But first, I just want to say thank you for gifting memberships. It looks like, Kel, you've been gifting memberships. Phoenix, Kel. Thank you so much. So at first, I want to thank you for that. And then, hi, Donna. Thank you for being here. And also, Brandy, I wasn't trying to be weird either. Sometimes I come off weird. I'm not trying to be weird. I know we were just, sometimes I feel attacked, but just know I'm not mad at any of you. I welcome all viewpoints. I welcome all kinds of comments. And let me get the comments correct. Look at this. I have to edit a little bit. Look how big this is. Why is it so big? Oh. Gina, it's nice seeing you again. It's nice seeing all of you. I know they were such a beautiful couple. It is sad how things devolve, right? It's like you don't expect these things. And it terrifies me. It terrifies me when someone close to us becomes a criminal, takes lives, and it's terrible. Boulé. I think we need some boulé after this. Now I'm going to make jokes. This is not a funny situation. But if you are not a law baddie, then you'll know that we use humor. We use humor to feel better about things. We use humor so we don't cry. We 100% understand the seriousness of this. And they were a beautiful couple. Let me see if there's any questions in here. Cuff is also one of our moderators and an admin in our Discord group, has been keeping the Discord lively since I've been gone. So thank you for that. And Cuff said, dang, this is a sweet deal. You and your spouse walk into a job, all the show me the money. Yeah, they did have really good jobs. And another gifted membership or two. Also, there will be new emojis starting tomorrow. So let's see what Nancy's saying. Dang, if anyone remembers their wedding, oh my gosh, do you remember what happened? No, jog my memory. Was it that she was supposed to have kosher food? They were supposed to have kosher food. And they spent so much time getting this beautiful catering, amazing catering kitchen from Boca Raton, I believe. Beautiful venue. I was going to put some pictures up, but I decided not to. And at the last minute, Donna was like, we don't need kosher. Just say it's kosher. Like, who does that? So I might not have it all correct because, like I said, it's been a little while. And, oh, did you have an ad? Okay, I didn't know ads were on a live. Don't worry, I'm going to take care of that. I'm so sorry for getting an ad. YouTube is a little bit off the rails, so I apologize if there is any ads in this video. Now, on the replay, I can't always help that, but on the lives, I should be able to help that. Phoenix says her brother was a good-looking guy, too. I'm sure they think so in prison, too. I wonder how he's doing in prison. You know, I haven't. Denise, hi. It's the first time you're able to catch a live. Hope we're not going to scare you away and you'll be back again. The stapled money emoji. We're going to come there. We're going to get that. Can y'all imagine if Wendy ever goes to trial? The law baddies will have to fly to Florida. I will be there. Do you think she will? Tell me if you think that that is on the horizon. I think we're hoping that it happens. Sheila said that she's only an hour from Tallahassee. I think it's a beautiful town. Let's see. I can stash 4 law baddies in a camper in Florida. That was Anna. And then someone, Winter, hi, says, I'll volunteer to be stashed in a camper. Yes, as long as I can be in there as well. Lala said, Donna wanted Dan out of the picture completely. That is true. I mean, allegedly, right? But I think we can see from the 3 other trials. We've got McVanoa, Lewis, Charlie, yep, and then we went to the plea deal for the 4th. 43 people and only 19 likes. By the way, there is something new going to be rolled out. Hi, Courtney. My best friend is here, so I have to say hi to her. There's a new thing being rolled out that I'm going to tell all of you about. We'll do it in a private one probably, but it's called Hype. It's new. You'll see it soon. But there's something where right after a video goes live, y'all can hype it and then win prizes. There's also a leaderboard here. So if you're interested in perks and things like that. Nova said, I think the parts I'm the most confused about are Wendy's and Donna's roles and what knowledge they had about the hip beforehand. You know what? You're not alone. That's a really interesting question. It's also a really interesting thing to be confused about, an important thing, because we don't know. We have assumptions, but I think that's what's going to be so interesting about Donna's trial, because I think it's the closest we might get to knowing what Wendy might have known. What are your thoughts? What do you think Wendy knew? What do you think that everyone knew? What do you think Harvey knew? What do you think Donna knew? What are your theories? Because I'll tell you mine at the end. I don't want to interrupt everyone else. Cuff said, I'm by no means making fun of the situation like Kimber said. We like to make some light in the darkness. Dan was an exceptional man and father, and he truly was. I wouldn't spend the time doing a deep dive like I did if I didn't think he was amazing, that I wanted to talk about his life, that I wanted to dive deep into why he had to die. He didn't have to. It was an execution. It was disgusting. And I am going to be showing you more of the crime scene. I do have a lot of the crime scene photos. I will be putting some in our Discord. We have a special area where we can show a lot more than we can here on YouTube. So that is one thing we do behind the scenes. Phoenix said, I think Wendy knew everything. She belongs in prison as well. Courtney says, I think Wendy knew. Also, I want to tell you, thank you so much, everyone who was patient with me and is still a law baddie. I saw that your little icons changed to the pink suitcase, and I was really excited because they change as we go along. Okay, so let's get back, Kimber. Let's get back into what's going on here, and I'll get back to some of your comments as well. Let's go to Sassy Narc first. Nance, sorry, I said Narc. Nance, Donna's husband got her a one-way ticket before they stopped her. We're going to get to that. The man, Phoenix said, the man was a genius with so much to offer the world. And Nova said, I can't tell if Donna knew about it beforehand or only after the fact. Yeah, I'm not sure. I have my own thoughts. We're going to wait till the end for my thoughts. Let's go back into where we left off. So I do want to tell you about this horrific murder. So sad. It's just unbelievable too. Not only is it sad, but I can't believe anyone would plan something like this and think that it's okay, think that it's a way out. So this is Dan at the gym. I'm going to leave this one up because we are going to be talking about part of this. And then I'll put some crime scene things there as well. And maybe I should start actually with, I'd like to give you the photos here. Let's start with Dan's house. So he lived at 2116 Trescott, I believe. That's off memory, but I believe that's the address. It was the morning of July 18th of 2014. And Dan Markel had followed his usual routine. He dropped his boys off at daycare around 9 a.m. and then he went to the gym. That's why I had the gym picture up. Let's go back there. He went to the gym. It was called Premier Health and Fitness. He went there for a workout. Unbeknownst to him, two hitmen in a Toyota Prius were watching him, and they were tailing him the whole morning. As a matter of fact, I circled the car in this parking lot. Let me move it to the side so you can see it. You see this Prius right here? This is from the CCTV footage from that gym. Only later was this pulled up because this was an intense investigation. Let me pull this up even better for you. This was an intense investigation. It went for years. It's still going on, right, with Donna's case. But here's the car pulling in right after Dan. I mean, tailing him right behind him in this parking lot. He had no idea. Now, what you won't hear, because a lot of the details, you might actually hear this. He was on the phone with a teacher. He was on the phone with a special teacher at a private school, I believe, where he was trying to get his kids enrolled for the new year. He's got the guy's business card, and it's in his hand. This is going to be later. Oh, actually, he was talking to his mom in this parking lot. I do think he was texting the teacher at this point. I stand corrected, I believe. Remember, I'm going by memory. But he's in this parking lot. He's talking to his mom. He's doing his normal drive to work. He's texting the preschool teacher or kindergarten teacher, because I think one was starting kindergarten. And then he walks into the gym not knowing that car is following him. And inside that car is two hitmen. Surveillance footage showed that Prius went in the parking lot, circled and circled while Dan's inside working out. He leaves the gym around 10:40 a.m. and he drives home. Now, what he doesn't know at the time, that's what I'm trying to show you, is that this, you gotta kind of look here. Let me blow this up for you. Second car in line here is the Prius. It was following him out of that parking lot, and it was following him home. It's just so terrifying to think that this could be happening on his daily routine. And that is when he was on the phone with the kindergarten teacher. He was asking all about the program. I do not remember his name off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Scott's coming to my mind, but that's probably not the right name. He's on the phone with this guy, and he's pulling in. Let me show you his house. This is Dan's house. The garage door is open. Why? Because Dan had pulled into his driveway. He was seated in his car in his garage on the phone. Part of his execution happened on the phone. That's in the playlist. We go deep into that. You're going to hear 911 calls, everything. It's detailed in those videos. He was on the phone. How terrifying was it for this man who was speaking to him, and all of a sudden he heard commotion, something. He couldn't really make it out. And then he just heard like heavy breathing. It was terrifying. An assailant approached, you're going to learn more about who that was, and shot Dan at point blank range through the driver's window. He was hit twice, once in the head and once in the face. This is the garage. This was the open garage, the way it looked that day. His neighbor is watching all of this happening. Not this happening. He's seeing the garage door open and he's hearing this happening. We're going to get more into that as well. This is part of the window that was shot through. The window was up at the time. The neighbor hears a loud bang and he looks out his window just in time to see this light-colored Prius rapidly, fast, in a rush, unusual. And that caught his attention, backing out of Dan's driveway. Car he'd never seen before. They lived there for several years, never saw this car, didn't know the family really well, but knew the family. Even went to a housewarming party when Dan and Wendy first moved in, before they even had the children. He sees this car fleeing the scene. And as a matter of fact, I think I have from one of my old videos, this is the way the Prius went down this road. Just in time, he sees the car and the neighbor realizes he doesn't have his phone. He runs back home. I believe he waited. He heard the noise. He waited. He was going to look if Dan was pulling out. He didn't. He comes over and realizes that Dan is still alive, but critically injured. The neighbor calls 911. Now, if you listen to this 911 call, I guarantee you're going to be annoyed. I guarantee that you will be annoyed. I don't remember if it was 15 minutes. Please correct me if you remember the time frame. If you just watched the opening statements and you happen to remember how long it took for these first responders to get there, let me know. But when they do arrive, police find Dan Markel slumped over in the driver's seat. He's bleeding from a gunshot wound. 2 of them. Car is still running. Garage door is open. There's no signs of a robbery, no signs of a struggle at the scene. It seems targeted. It doesn't seem random. He's rushed to the hospital, but sadly, he passes away within 14 hours. So by the next day, July 19th, 2014. When police notify Wendy that her ex-husband has been shot, well, she makes some very startling statements. Let's just put it that way. The whole interview can be found in the playlist as well. But during this interview at the police station that day, oh, and by the way, if you don't know this, I'm giving you a recap. Or if you do know this, I'm giving you a recap. If you don't know this, she's at lunch with her friends. Just an ordinary day. Planning to go to a wedding shower that night. She's going to have babysitters. Everything's normal. She's stunned when a police officer comes in and says, "We need you to come with us." She goes back to the station. And now she makes a really weird suggestion on what could have happened to her ex-husband. Something that I don't think someone that doesn't know anything would say. She's like, "Well, maybe someone did this for me." Come again? She's in this interview. She's doing the, sniffles, if you will. She looks very concerned. Is it an act? I think so. Because her mom told her she would need to put on the act of her life. Not for this interview, but this was in emails prior. She had to pretend like she was going to convert the boys to Catholicism. And in Donna's words, she needed to put on like the acting, not debut, but the act of her life in order to accomplish tricking Dan into letting the kids relocate. That didn't work though. But she suggested somebody might have done this for me without me knowing. And she told the detectives that her parents were very, very angry at Dan over the relocation battle. And that her brother, Charlie, her big brother, he joked about hiring a hitman. This is when she mentions that it's cheaper to buy her a TV than a hitman. Well, what's interesting is that Donna herself, Mommy Dearest, had actually arranged for Wendy's broken TV to be repaired on the very same morning of the murder. This was an errand that kept Wendy out of the way, let's just say. She was back at home at the time that Dan was murdered. So that's what I meant by an alibi. An alibi that started as a joke that becomes an alibi later. Now, Wendy was insisting she did not know what happened, and she truly said that she didn't think her parents would harm Dan. But just by saying what she did in that interview, you don't say those things. Why would you even make that suggestion? But then, maybe if she didn't know a lot, she would make that suggestion. So like one of you said, maybe she wasn't really apprised of everything, or maybe you said that about Donna, but maybe she would make that statement like, maybe my parents had something to do with it. But she pointed the finger of suspicion at her own relatives from day one. Was that in the plan? Or did Wendy turn on everyone? Did Wendy realize, oh crap, it didn't work out. My brother couldn't pull this off the way that he bragged that he could if he did. So in the immediate aftermath, the Adelsons' family behavior was odd. It was odd. This to me was probably one of the most annoying things that I remember. They acted like Dan wasn't that important. Remember, supposedly they were angry with him, didn't like them. Is there a lot of ads going on? I am so sorry. I did not do that. I don't know why there's ads. Let me see if I can do something to it. On the break for a second, I'll see if I can fix it. Because I didn't put ads in there. I'm sorry to break through the recap here. But immediately afterward, for Dan's funeral, they go, but then they leave town with Wendy and the boys immediately afterward. And they told investigators, oh, we're going to talk to you guys. We're going to talk to you guys. And we're going to come back. No, they don't. They just leave. And the two boys and Wendy go with them. And she pretty much relocates back to South Florida. And no one in this family contacted the Tallahassee Police Department to follow up on Dan's case. Charlie didn't even go to the funeral. And within a year, Wendy decides to legally change her son's last name from Markel to Adelson. Why would you do that? It's evil. It's weird. I'm sure a lot of you are going to take issue with that. Let me pause for a second and see if I can change the ads. I don't know why it would be doing that. Hang on one second. We're going to take a pause. I'm going to go into my account. I did not even set ads. So this is new to me. But since I don't want you guys to be suffering through that, let me see. if I can even fix it live. I apologize. Leave some comments below while I'm doing this, and I'll try to answer those. Why are they doing ads? That's so weird. Okay. No. I'm going to turn everything off. I just turned it off. Don't know what's going on with it. All right. Sorry about that. Let's go back to the show. So now, essentially, Wendy has what she always wanted. Donna has what she always wanted. She changes their last name to her last name, essentially acting like their father never existed. Now, all of these actions later, of course, struck the investigators as attempts to distance themselves and quickly just move on as though Dan never existed and nothing ever happened. And this is as the murder investigation is ongoing. Now, there was a breakthrough in this investigation, and that's when they were trying to identify the hitmen. Because remember, from the beginning, they were like, you know what? This seems targeted. Just the way it was carried out, it just seems off. It seems like someone wanted Dan dead. Now, in the beginning, they didn't just go straight to the Adelsons. I mean, yes, Wendy had said some things, but they actually thought it could possibly have something to do with Dan's career. He was helping on high-profile cases, he was consulting, and he was even dating a woman whose brother is a famous artist, and she herself was high up and had a high-profile career. So don't get me wrong, they were doing their due diligence. It wasn't just, okay, it's the Adelson family. But as they're going through trying to solve this case, which took time, the Tallahassee police, the FBI, the state authorities, they spent nearly 2 years piecing together all of the evidence. Now, a critical clue was the Prius. Remember, seen by that neighbor on their surveillance footage, again at the gym. That's how they kind of put it together. Because once they heard what the neighbor said, they went back, they go through all the footage, they realize, oh my gosh, there's a Prius. Well, it turned out, and I actually have a photo of where it was rented from. So let's go through all of this because I don't want to miss anything. It was rented from right here. This is from Google Maps. This is in none other than Miami, Florida. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? This getaway vehicle, a green silver, that's what they called it, a green silver, I think it was a 2008 Prius. It's traced to this origin, a car rental place, a kind of shady rental place, if I do say so myself, because look at this place. It's not your Enterprise rental car. I hope you're not getting more ads. I turned them off, so there's no way I'm putting any ads on there. So I'll definitely contact YouTube because I didn't do it. And I apologize if they were on. But it turns out there are SunPass toll records. Now, the fact that it's in Miami, well, guess what? That's a coincidence. No, it's not. It seems interesting that Donna and Wendy, the Adelson family, they all live in Miami. And the rental car is from Miami. So guess what they do? If you're from Florida, you'll know what SunPass is. Here in California, what do we call it? It's a toll road. I don't use the toll road here, but the SunPass records, they get them. And around the murder, it showed that this Prius, they took photos of the toll roads, which is a paid road. Well, guess what? It traveled from South Florida to Tallahassee and then back. And then they correlated the phone records, the pings. And how they got this was very interesting. And I think I learned more about this as I dug deeper. So when they saw that the car was in that parking lot of the gym, they do this sweep. They get the cell tower and they see what cars are in the vicinity and they go through every single record. Two of those people, or I think one person, because the other guy didn't bring his phone. I think it was one of them at the time. Either or. They track that person back to Miami, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. So law enforcement gets this rental contract, which I do have a photo of. Let's see. Here it is. It's a little bit light, but let's try to blow it up just a tiny bit. I like showing things like this. They pull up this rental agreement from, what does it say up there? Hybrid Auto rental center. Okay. Looks like it's on Biscayne Boulevard in Miami. Well, they pull this up and they see the renter's name, Luis Rivera. He gives an address. And then he also gives his brother's phone number at the top. If you see that at the top, it says brother. And it even has the type of car that was rented. It was a Toyota Prius. I can't read this very well, but I believe it says 6:15 a.m. that they left on, what does that say, I'm not sure if it says, they brought it back on the 17th. So this says the 15th, doesn't it? Okay. So they say that it's rented July 15th through the 21st. This says the 17th. But there's a phone number and also that brother's phone number on the top. Well, it was Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia. Now, this is a huge lead. Garcia and Rivera were friends since childhood. They're from Miami. They have criminal backgrounds. And investigators now think that these two guys were the hitmen and that they drove up to Tallahassee to carry out basically an assassination on Dan Markel. And there was so much evidence coming to light. And that really solidified this theory. There was GPS from the rental car that was built in. There was a bunch of locations that matched their movements. And you know what I loved? I really loved, I don't know if I can show you this. Well, first of all, let me show you who people are. This is Sigfredo and Sigfredo Garcia. I also have Luis. Oh, that's him when he was taking his deal, because he ends up taking a deal. I didn't get there yet. But this right here is Luis and Sigfredo back in the day. They've been best friends forever. And I'll come back to a little bit of this as well, because I'll show you some of the other things. Well, they go ahead and, oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry, sometimes when you're live, it's a little bit crazy. What I really like to see is, let's see if I can find it for you. That's where the Prius went. Remember that? Can I even find it? Yes. They were able to get bus footage. I love bus footage. In traffic, these buses got the Toyota Prius on camera. And that was so pivotal because they're starting to track it. They can see it turning. They can see it right by Dan's house. So they know. They made this connection. And for example, on July 16th, they get a ping near the Miami home of Rivera's girlfriend at the time. And then just after midnight on July 18th, hours before the murder, it pinged in Tallahassee near a motel where they think they stayed. So cell phone records confirmed that Garcia and Rivera's phones were in Tallahassee on the night of the 17th, near the gym in the morning on the 18th, while Dan's working out. And the investigators even found a witness who remembers seeing Garcia and Rivera at that Tallahassee motel. And they testified in other trials. They were also seen, I just remember this, back in June, a month before, scouting, doing this trip, and possibly even trying to carry out the hit at that point. And this witness saw Rivera in possession of a handgun. It was a revolver, which actually matched the type of firearm used to shoot Dan Markel. So by mid-2016, I'm going to show you these two men again. This is them when they were younger. Oh, whoops. Let's see if I can. This is them when they were younger. We're also going to hear about Sigfredo's girlfriend because she's really going to be pivotal as well. But by mid-2016, the authorities had enough evidence gathering to move and to arrest and indict both of these men. And on May 25th, Sigfredo Garcia is arrested in South Florida. Let me show you him again, so you're going to be very familiar with everyone by the end of this. This is Sigfredo. His was the first arrest. It's in South Florida, and it's for Dan Markel's murder. Now, just a few days later, on June 2nd, 2016, we have the second arrest. And that is of Rivera, Luis Rivera. And now, here's what's interesting. He was a co-defendant in another case. So he was already in federal custody. So arrested, I'm just using arrested, but he was serving a sentence. And this was related to his role in the Latin Kings. This is a gang. So he was available and he was charged as well. So both these men are charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy. Accused of being the shooter was Sigfredo, who I just showed you. And now we're going to talk about what Lewis decided to do. Some people are going to say, good on him. He turned on his best friend. You can tell me what you think about all that. But he decides to take a deal. 19 years. He was just a driver, he says. He got involved in this because of his best friend. And I see a lot of you in the comments are remembering Tudo and Tato. Tito? Was it Tato? Remember this? Well, he cooperated. He didn't want the death penalty because that's what they were going to bring. He didn't want life in prison either. So he chose to cooperate with the investigators. In October of 2016, he makes that plea deal, pleads guilty, no contest, to a reduced charge of second-degree murder. He receives a 19-year prison sentence, and he has to testify against his best friend. Now, he already had an existing sentence, so they're concurrently running at this point. And now he's not going to serve, 19 years is pretty significant, but it's a lot better in a lot of people's minds than serving a life sentence, right? And this was a huge breakthrough. If you go back to the playlist and you do listen to this, I'm going to tell you, you need both headphones on for a lot of this audio. Terrible audio, to be expected, right? In a freaking interview room. But we apologize profusely at the time that we recorded everything. It's not the best audio, but you will hear him. He's going to tell you everything. He gave insider details about the plot. He confirmed it was a murder for hire. And according to him, there was the go-between, Catherine McManawa, who's known as Katie. That was who I mentioned, was Sigfredo Garcia's longtime girlfriend, who he calls his wife. But there's another connection here. He's also romantically, or was connected, or she, was romantically connected to none other than Charlie Adelson. That's right. And it was said that Charlie was the one who recruited Katie, and then Katie in turn was the go-between between Charlie and the two hitmen. And they were going to get paid. He said they were offered $100,000 to be split equally between them, and that they understood the job was ordered by Wendy. They just knew her name, Wendy. They didn't know much about the family, according to Lewis. He's like, we didn't know about the family. But, we knew there was this woman. The father was bad. This is what they were told. The father wanted to take the children away, and Wendy and the male dentist, just referred to him as the male dentist, who we know is Charlie Adelson. His family wanted Dan Markel gone due to a custody dispute. Now, this is what's called a proffer, and later in his testimony, he also referred to Charlie as the dentist, and that Donna Adelson was the lady. So we've got the dentist, we've got the lady. But he said he never met any of them in person. His information, of course, all that he gave was corroborated. It's what the police suspected from the beginning, that a hitman, or two now, with no personal connection, did this to Dan Markel, and that they were just simply hired to bring about this terrible, terrible outcome. And they did this through Katie. And this is a picture of Katie and Charlie together. We're going to talk more about that, so I'm going to keep that up on the screen. Lewis also talked about the sequence of events. He and Garcia traveled from Miami to Tallahassee 2 times. I told you June and then July. And he said the first time they had to abort the whole plan. And you can go and watch other videos to figure out why, because it is deep. There's a lot that went on. Drugs, shooting guns off into floorboards, having to stop cars on the side of the road and get their car fixed. It was a lot. But the most important part was that Lewis talked about who pulled the trigger. Not Lewis. He said it was his best friend. It was Sigfredo. That Lewis was just the getaway driver. And how they drove back to Miami immediately. And along the way, the two of them even stopped at ATMs to withdraw some cash. And there was surveillance video from a drive-through ATM on the evening of the murder. And they caught both of them driving that Prius, and they even got a portion of that license plate number. So all of this to say, by late 2016, investigators had flipped this gunman. He had given a confession, and now they knew why the murder was carried out and how the murder was carried out. And the go-between was Catherine McBanoa, Katie. They went through everything, and they found phone records, financial records, and the attention then turned right to Katie, the woman in the middle of the scheme. She was the linchpin, I guess you could say, that connected the Adelson family to this hitman. She had a personal relationship with Charlie, as I explained, and was the mother of Sigfredo Garcia's two children. So investigators discovered an extensive pattern of communication, and we go deep into this in one of our videos. We have the screen popping up with all the different calls, because this can get very confusing. There's a lot of people involved, but it shows this pattern of communication around the time of the murder. Phone records showed that an hour and a half after Dan was shot, the first call Garcia made was to Katie. And the records also showed multiple calls on the day of the crime between Katie and between Charlie. And they were clustered. They were right before, and then they were right after the murder. So in that time frame. So it was very important. That's a pattern. That's significant. And additionally, Katie met with Garcia and Rivera in Miami the night before the hit. And this was to plan and also to hand off information. They needed to have a picture of what Dan looked like. They needed an address. And all of this evidence painted Katie, this woman right here on your screen, as an active coordinator of this crime. That's part of the conspiracy. And all the financial clues, it even bolstered the case even more. Shortly after the murder, guess what happened? Her bank account. Well, it's unusual activity. She doesn't usually have cash deposits. And now there's $13,000 in cash from July 2014 through late 2015. She deposited more than $56,000 in cash. And this was on top of other payments that she was receiving. So the investigators noted that before the murder, her finances, they were modest. And then there's this spike, which suggested that she was being paid off for this hit. Beginning in September of 2014, she started receiving these regular paychecks, which were interesting. Where do you think they might have come from? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the Dental Institute, the Adelson Institute for all things dental. And they were paychecks of $407.58 every 2 weeks. What's going on? Well, these were handwritten and signed by none other than the matriarch herself, the puppet master, Donna Adelson. Donna Sue Adelson. And these paychecks continued for over a year. But here's the problem. McBanoa, Katie, she didn't actually work at this dental institute at all in any capacity. This was bad. It was a ruse to provide her with ongoing hush money. They didn't want her to talk. They were afraid because you know what? She was back dating or being with or married to Sigfredo. Her and Charlie were done. She was back with her father of her children. The Adelsons, and this was so dumb. I mean, a lot of this is dumb, but I just see things and I'm like, why'd you do that? That was dumb. They gifted her. Well, I think there was like a $1,700 exchange, if I remember, but they transferred a 2001 Lexus to her. Another perk after the murder. And you know what else that really bugged me and made me so sick to my stomach? And I forgot to show you this. The men bought motorcycles right afterward. Like, this is what you did? You killed a father to what? Drive around in motorcycles? It's so bad. So bad. Oh, they weren't the only one going on a shopping spree. Little miss over here, she got 2 new additions. Yes, she did. She got a breast augmentation. No shame in it, but when you're using hush money and you're using a payoff for a murder, it's quite significant. It's quite significant and quite sad. This is what they were finding. And all of this indicated they were all paid. And Katie was still being paid handsomely to keep quiet. And by the fall of 2016, the authorities had strong evidence, even if it was circumstantial, because that is still really strong evidence. Doesn't always have to be direct, that implicated Katie. And there was a turning point in the investigation. My goodness. There was an FBI undercover operation, April 2016, between the arrest of Garcia and Rivera and Katie's arrest. They were going to stage, and they did stage, a fake blackmail threat. Let me show you Katie, though. Let's show Katie when, let's see, we already showed her there. Where is she? I lost it. No, not that one. I was going to show you when she actually got arrested. Here she is. There's the mugshot I was looking for. Took me a second. Katie gets arrested. We're going to go back to that and talk a little bit more. Courtney's being funny. The comments always make me laugh. I did want to take just a little pause because I did want to go and see what some of you were saying at this point. This was a lot. This is a lot to take in. A lot has happened. And I'm doing a lot of this from my memory, which I hope my memory serves me right. But let's see. Lacey said, you would think by now they would have better cameras and sound. I mean, granted, it was back in, 2016 at the time? But still, you really do think they would have better. Winter said, watching him testify today was so wild. He's so nonchalant. I don't know who we were talking about, but I did watch everything. Don't worry. We're going to go over it. I promise. Not today, but we are soon. See if anyone had any questions. Yeah, you do have some questions. Let's see. Adamara said that Katie looks so different now. She definitely does. And Nance said, not much of a circle of trust. Luckily, right? It's so disgusting. I mean, the fact that they would do that, and it's just like, for what? So you can buy a couple of motorcycles, a car, for someone's life. So here's what happens next, though, and it's what a lot of you have heard, the bump. The bump. Who's heard of the bump? Tell me. I have a picture of the bump. Let's go to it. Let's blow it up a little bit so I can show it to you on the screen while I'm talking about it. This is a very significant turning point. April 2016. Agents stage this fake blackmail attempt. Why do they do this? Or threat. Why do they do this? Well, they wanted to get the Adelsons talking again because time had gone by. They thought they got away with it. Why would they be talking about it now? So they decide to approach Donna Adelson. There she was after she was dropping the boys off at school. She's living her life in Miami, getting a tan. Her hair's up. She's definitely looks a lot different. Definitely looks a lot different now than she did back then. She was living the life in her swanky high rise. Well, this man approached her. He handed her an article. What was it about? Dan Markel. There's a phone number with it, and he demands $5,000 in exchange for not telling the police more. But actually what he was doing is he was saying this. You took care of Katie, but you're not taking care of my cousin who's in jail. So he was giving Donna the impression she needed to pay up or he was going to go to the police. And this was supposed to scare the Adelsons into starting to have conversations again because they had conversations again. They had tapped their phones. And guess what? It worked. And it worked well. In phone calls that were overheard by police at this point in a wiretap, Donna, who does she call? She doesn't call the police. She calls Charlie. She talks about the encounter and she can't say much. She's trying to be covert. And here's what I found so ridiculous because they are not criminal minds. Okay. They thought they were. They weren't. She was trying to talk in code, trying to be covert, but she's like, it's probably both of us who are, being implicated. She's trying to be so careful, but she's really not. And Charlie's like, let's not talk about this on the phone. But she's giving him hints. And now Charlie's trying to understand, is this the police or is it something else? Now, Charlie was recorded warning Donna, his mother, don't talk about things anywhere, and asking if the stranger mentioned anything else. And Donna says, oh yeah, an ex-girlfriend. And Charlie's had so many ex-girlfriends since Katie. But guess what? Out of all the ex-girlfriends it could have been, Charlie calls Katie. And they decide to meet in person because they don't want to have the conversation over the phone. So on April 20th of 2016, and I have a little picture of this. It's not the best picture. I thought I had it. Here it is. This is an undercover camera. Okay, it's not very good. And the audio, so bad. But guess what? The FBI, they're recording at Dolce Vita. This is a restaurant. And this tape captured Charlie making several, I would say covert and cryptic, but he didn't do a very good job, remarks that were so incriminating. He's discussing this blackmail threat. He's telling Katie, well, if they had any evidence, then we would have already gone to the airport, implying that if law enforcement could prove their involvement, he and others would already be under arrest or on the run. He talked about the situation being like throwing a smoke grenade to flush people out and saying that the police were just fishing. They're just fishing and they're trying to make people panic and they're trying to make them talk. Now, he wasn't really wrong, but very incriminating, right? And by the way, anyone who's giving me super stickers, thank you so, so much. I try to go in the end and favorite those so I can come back and thank you. I know I got 2 super chats. I got one from Michelle. Wow, thank you so much for that. And then I got 2 of them, it looks like, from Leno. Am I saying your name correctly when I say Lenova? Let me know. So here he is making these comments about being armed and ready to shoot anyone who came to extort them. He's like, if someone comes up to me asking for money, I'm going to shoot him. That's not really smart to say. Now, the thing is, he never explicitly mentioned Dan's murder, but it's pretty clear what was going on. Both Charlie and Katie spoke as though they were complicit in some kind of past wrongdoing and they were scared of getting caught. So it was bad. There was a lot of remarks and a lot of things. Like, I specifically remember him being really confident. He was bragging. He's like, oh, well, I know everything about the law. And like, if they can have DNA in a rental car. Like, why are you even mentioning a rental car? Like, you're doing too much. I think he just was one of those people who thought he was a big badass. And he was so used to just throwing money around, getting whatever he wanted, that he didn't realize this is the law. And then they went and enhanced and analyzed this audio. It wasn't great. Even with it enhanced, it's very hard to understand. But you can get little tidbits of what's going on. Clear enough for them to realize that this was a conspiracy. So Katie, in October of 2016, Leon County grand jury indicted her. And this was on charges of first-degree murder, conspiracy, I think, and solicitation for Dan Markel's murder. I wanted to show you her picture again. Let me put that back up on the screen. Yeah, and this right here, Sigfredo, Garcia, and then we've got Katie. So finally, she's arrested, indicted, she pleads not guilty, and then she goes to trial. I'm telling you, there's a lot to this. There's a lot. Who remembers this? Well, there were delays because it was in 2019, and by that time, her co-conspirator, Sigfredo Garcia, was being tried alongside her. So it was one trial, both of the defendants, co-defendants. It was a lot. And they laid out the whole murder for hire scheme, and they placed her at the center. Prosecutors were arguing she was the go-between. She facilitated every step of this plot, from recruiting the killers to relaying all the information, and ultimately for even distributing payments. In October 2019, the jury did reach a split decision. Sigfredo was found guilty on first-degree murder and conspiracy. He got a life sentence. But the jury could not unanimously agree on Katie's guilt. And I believe she even testified. If I can find that photo for you. Oh, that's Charlie. Here's Katie. We're going to see her testifying in Charlie's trial, which was a very interesting one to watch. And I'm just wondering how Donna's is going to pan out. But unfortunately at the time, it was a mistrial. And most jurors, they didn't favor conviction, and she never took a deal. She could have taken a deal, and she didn't. She wanted to go to trial. So another retrial took place in May of 2022. And at that point, there was so much more evidence in the case. It benefited from more improved clarity from the Dolce Vita recording. This time, the outcome was decisive. She was convicted on all counts: murder, conspiracy, and solicitation. And she was sentenced to life in prison, plus 2 consecutive 30-year terms when she could have taken a plea deal from the beginning. I mean, she's where she belongs, but all I'm saying is sometimes I'm like, why didn't she take the plea deal? I don't know. But only after receiving this harsh sentence, she decided to cooperate, kind of. And in 2023, hoping that she was going to get some kind of post-conviction reduction in her sentence, she did this. She testified at Charlie's trial. And who remembers Charlie on the stand, taking the stand in his own defense? Oh my gosh, was that a crazy, crazy trial? If you've watched it, let me know what your highlights were. But Charlie was the next one to be arrested, indicted. And remember, Wendy's brother, South Florida dentist, long been suspected as one of the masterminds of this entire plot. And for years, there just wasn't enough evidence to charge him. But that changed in 2022. They got that enhanced audio technology, and they were able to hear that recording. And it directly implicated him. He planned this. He planned it. He planned the cover-up. And with this evidence, plus Katie's conviction in 2022, which put more pressure on the other conspirators, a grand jury indicted Charlie. And he was arrested on first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. And by the way, I did a deep dive. I already said this so many times, but I show his house that he was arrested in. I show the inside of what it looked like. I show a lot. But now he went on trial. He was taken into custody in April 2022. And he had no bail, and he was there until trial. Do we have any questions? One of us said, I thought it was brutal when Lewis called Charlie Katie's side piece. I heard that today. I think he's done that before. I mean, they all hate each other at this point, I feel like. Let's see. You also asked, does anyone remember how long Katie's plea deal offer was for? I would believe it was probably similar to what Luis Rivera got, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. I don't really remember. She didn't take it. Can't believe it. But unfortunately, no matter how hard this man right here tried to be a charmer, the jurors, they heard everything. The recordings, they saw the calls, the payments, the stapled money, the wet, soggy, stapled money that Donna apparently washed when she thought it had to be laundered. She thought she had to wash it, like actually wash it. Oh no. I can only laugh because, it's sad. It's not sad because of what they did, but it's sad that you're that stupid, right? Can't fix that. But December 2023, Charlie was formally sentenced to life in prison without parole for the murder. Now, at the time, I believe he had a 5-year-old son. I could be wrong about the age, but he had moved on. I would listen to the jail calls between him and his girlfriend. Yeah, it always breaks my heart hearing those, even when it's a bad person, but not for him, for his kid. It's sad. He ruined his life. He became the 4th person convicted in Dan Markel's murder. But Charlie maintains his innocence. I think it's pretty clear. You can tell me how you feel. I don't know. Just tell me. I think, I told you I was going to give you some of my... Wait, somebody said, Marie said, or Mary? No, Katie was offered full immunity and she refused it because she wouldn't implicate Sigfredo. And the sad part is all the other ones would implicate her, right? Oh no. She was going to stand by her man no matter what, right? So let's get into the case for today. I was going to talk about it like I do on my channel. Let's get into what's happening now. The arrest of Donna Sue Adelson. Because that's the trial that we are up to now. Wendy and Charlie's mom. It's very sad. It's very sad that this is what they chose to do. The fact is, Donna's name has been in every trial. She's been a part of all the other cases. And it seems like, from what we know, she's one of the masterminds. That she was the one that told, there was the bribe, right? It was her idea, $1 million. And it also is evident that she made those checks. She made them out to Katie, right? She was in charge of the books. It was her signature. And then there was the recording. It's probably the two of us, she and Charlie, that were in trouble. Why would she be in trouble? Oh, so Wendy doesn't have immunity. She has derivative immunity, which means anything she says on the stand can't be used against her, but she does not have immunity. They can charge her, especially if any new evidence comes up. But that is where we are. This is where we are now. She was officially arrested. This was her at the airport with her husband. They were on a one-way flight to Vietnam, who has the non-extradition law. So she thought she's going to get away. Why else would you be taking a one-way flight? Some of us do that, but she was arrested at the airport. There's a lovely video of her. I think I showed it somewhere, but lovely video of all this on body cam, but a lovely video of her in the cop car, which I thoroughly enjoyed watching, especially when she was really thirsty and she needed to be hand sipped the water bottle. I laughed. But she faced the same 3 charges that her son did. First-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation for Dan Markel's execution. Here we are. It's where we are right now. Today was the first day of the trial. And so far, my takeaways, what I feel like, oh, by the way, I think she was 73 years old when she was taken into custody. And was that, so she's probably 75 now? She's 75? Of course, she's pleading not guilty. She has a defense team. These are 2 new defense attorneys. Oh my goodness, what are their names? I had them up on my screen. And my thoughts, it's Joshua Zellman and Jackie Fulford. We have Georgia Kappelman again for the prosecution and Sarah Dugan. Went to school with Sarah. For 1 year, she was at my school. But at this point, we've heard the opening statements. We've heard a lot of the same witnesses as before, but I'm just very interested in anything new that's going to come up. So far, I only got through half of today, but not to tell you all of my personal stuff. And my dad went into the hospital. My stepmom was in the hospital before she got out. It's been a storm of things lately, but here I am. So as of now, the trial is underway. Jury selection was just a couple days ago, opening statements today. And it's almost a repeat so far. What I saw of the neighbor, the cops, a lot of that I could have kind of predicted. But I will say, this is just for Donna's sake. I kind of wish the male defense attorney was the one doing the opening statements. I didn't really feel compelled by Jackie. If that is, correct me if I'm wrong, that's her name, but I just didn't feel it. And don't worry, we're going to recap that. But this was the summary I wanted to give you. If you have any questions, I'm kind of at the end of this video at this point. But I just want to do that because a lot of the comments on the live streams today were, what's going on? Who's Sigfredo? Who's Katie? How are they connected? So, and I'm just really glad to be here with all of you again. It's been too long. Don't worry. I don't plan to take another long break like that. I got married. I was out of town, got the new house going. It was a lot. So I'm back. So excited for all of you to be here with me every day. And don't forget, I post weekly on my main channel. We're starting to post weekly again consistently on Dark Livity. And you can always also catch me on Spotify. It's the same thing you're going to get on YouTube. So some people just enjoy watching it on there that don't have premium because you can watch it with your phone closed and things like that. But remember at the end, I was going to give you my thoughts. So anyone who wants to stick around for just little thoughts of mine, a part of me doesn't think there's a way that Donna didn't know. Do I think that Harvey might not have known until the end? Sure. Do I think there could be a tiny just sliver of doubt that maybe Wendy didn't know everything? Maybe. Because maybe they wanted to shield her. Maybe they thought she would talk. I mean, look what she said when she was being interviewed. I don't know. You tell me. I think all of them are guilty as hell. All of them. That's just my opinion. We're going to know, right? But I do want to say one thing. I know we're going to recap the opening statement soon. I might even pop in tomorrow and recap them with you so that we can be fresh for Monday. I really think that the male defense attorney, when he was doing the jury selection, I thought he was very personable. I was laughing at some of his jokes. I actually thought it was a little more painful for Georgia when she was talking to the jurors or potential jurors. I mean, she tried to make a joke in the beginning and everyone was sort of like, oh, well, I couldn't see their faces, but she was like, and no one was laughing, I guess. I love the judge. He has a sense of humor, which I like. It seems that everyone has a little bit of a sense of humor, which I think we kind of need sometimes. Not that any of these things are being made light of or anything, but that's my recap for today. I do want to see Wendy arrested next. If you want to catch the playlist, don't forget to look below. I linked it for you there. I miss all of you. I'm so happy. A lot of you are celebrating a few months of being a law baddie. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget our Discord. Do not forget our Discord. It is called Behind the Yellow Tape. We have a lot of different channels and we talk about a lot of different cases, ongoing ones, trials, and everything in between. And I love the heel brain emoji. That's my favorite. That is essentially the law baddies. So thank you all for being here today. I'm really glad that we're getting together for this trial. I will see you very soon. Don't forget, I'm going to be doing daily recaps. I can't sit with you during the entire trial. It's a goal of mine one day, but I'm just not there yet. I'm not ahead yet. I'm leaving for CrimeCon soon. So I got a lot on my plate, but I will be here with all of you. I love you all. I will see you very soon. Thank you so much for being here with me. Bye.